Welcome back to our program here on the Taiwan Outlook. I'm your host, Rui Guo. We will continue our conversation with Dr. Serge Dreyer, who is an associate professor in the Department of Foreign Language and Literature at Tunghai University. Serge, I'm going to ask you that you've been teaching in Taiwan universities for many years. You've taught a lot of different courses as well, but mostly related to culture. Okay? As a foreign professor, though, how do you teach Taiwanese culture to Taiwanese students from the foreign professor's perspective?
In fact, I don't teach Taiwanese culture to Taiwanese students.
Okay.
But you're also right. I do it indirectly. In fact, when you're teaching a foreign culture,
of course,
I've taught mostly French culture
and
how to deal with the foreign culture. But one has always to remember, and that's what I emphasize with my students, that when you study a foreign culture, you have to do it from your own point of view, necessarily. So you have to understand who you are. You have to understand your culture to understand how much what you perceive from another culture is stereotype, cliché, social representation. And you have also to understand that in your relationship with a foreign culture, there are a lot of values, social values,
of course,
that you are aware of or you're not aware of, which interfere into your process of knowledge. And that's how I teach my students. For example, I had a class about fashion. And I didn't just teach, the history of fashion. I asked my students, especially the female students, to go and interview their grandmother and their mother, why they were wearing this kind of clothes, what does it mean for them, and so on. So I started to build up a dialogue between three generations of women for the young students to understand why now they're wearing this kind of clothes. What does it mean to be kaifeng or baoshou? Because usually students just believe that you're bare breast or bare buttocks, then you're kaifeng. In fact, they just realize that their mother in the 60s were more open-minded than them. So by working on that, they begin to realize that the vision they had about the foreign culture is first based in their heart, in their mind, in their own culture. And so I'm trying to make them, like you mentioned in the topic of the broadcast, a bridge between two cultures. I'm trying to make them move between the two sides of the river to understand better themselves.
Exactly. But, Serge, the fact is, probably most of your students at Tunghai or other places never been to France, And when you try to teach them, about the French culture, and how would you expect them to really grasp, what you were trying to convey to them? Were there any points of reference for them?
There are many points of reference.
If
you don't go to France, France will come to you. And it's the same for Taiwan. If you are in France, you don't go to Taiwan, Taiwan will come to you, because you have social representation which are traveling all over the world. Let's say, for example, Chinese people and Taiwanese people always say French are romantic. If you begin to ask why, then people start to tell you different things about love, going on the on the bank of the Seine River, walking and so on, or fashion. French fashion is in the shops. French wine is in the shops. So people are building up a kind of view of France where, these people, they know how to make a living, they know how to enjoy the life. So you just work on that. Say, what does it mean, for example, to enjoy your life with wine only? How about you with tea in Taiwan, for example? You have also your own way to enjoy life. So why do you look at French people, specialists of enjoying life? And then you begin to work on, for example, the cafe. You have cafe everywhere.
In Taiwan,
but the fashion of cafe doesn't come from France. But when you talk with people about cafe, they think about France because they read books about it. They have ideas about it. They heard fellow people traveling to France. So we talk about these ideas, this social representation, and what does it mean for them to be romantic, starting from this point? Because they have their own interpretation of being romantic, which doesn't correspond to the way French people look at themselves. That's where it's interesting.
Just from talking to you, Serge, I think it's very unique that you try to, through your teaching, let your students rediscover themselves. examine themselves. And I also learned just now that you had taught courses to teach your students to rediscover their lifestyles. How do you lead a group of local Taiwanese students to rediscover their lifestyle, their values, their way of thinking, the way of looking at themselves? This must be a very formidable task.
Well, there are always up and down into that.
Of course.
I'm not doing things perfect, but there are many techniques to do that.
For example?
Just to give you two examples, and one technique which went on TV, I invited a professional clown, a female clown, and she came to teach the art of clown to my students, to 15 of my students, to train them to go in a hospital to perform for the small kids who were in hospital. And students were very moved by that, because suddenly they realized that they were empowered. Because, in Taiwanese society, like in many society, older people always criticize young people. So in Taiwan, it's 草莓族 and all kind of labels. And they just found out that they have a social responsibility. They can be creative. They can bring something to people, and people respect them for that. So you empower them, and you begin to tell them, the power is in yourself.
Of course.
Don't expect always a teacher to do everything for you,
your
society, parents, or whatever. And that was a very moving experience. And presently, I'm teaching another class. I teach students how to speak in public through their body language. Something that most of the time they're not aware of. And in Taiwan, like in any Chinese society, body has been repressed for centuries. And very few people know how to use their body to speak in public. And especially young students, they're very nervous.
Of course.
They always have parallel movement, like always making some kind of same movement. And so I use clown, mime, Tai Chi Chuan techniques to make them used to speak in front of people. And then suddenly they realize that they are in a situation where, in daily life, they wouldn't face this situation. For example, ask them to go in the middle of the school and to place the frozen statue, to take and not moving in front of everybody. And that's difficult.
Yes.
And they just discover themselves as shy people, but at the same time, once they have done this, they just realize, I can do it.
Yes.
So little by little, they discover who they are.
Exactly. And also, Serge, another subject area that you teach, of course, is French. And how do you then teach your students to learn about France, to learn about the French culture through the learning of the language of French?
Language, first, it's always very important that to understand that language and culture are intertwined.
Of course.
Too many teaching are just based on language, grammar, and vocabulary. And for me, it's a little bit difficult because most of my students are not used to that. They just want rules of grammar. They want to write language. They don't want to talk. And
learn about the vocabulary.
Yes, and just reproduce what the teacher says. And I'm quite a tough teacher. I push them very hard to communicate, even if the language is not really correct, but be able to communicate, to survive if you go to France.
Exactly.
And by doing that, by the attitude I have as a typical French teacher, not as a Chinese-like teacher, who has to be a friend, a father, and everything, they come to realize that there is a different relationship between teachers and students in France, which is because the job of teacher in France is just a function. It's a job. You don't have the pressure of being evaluated by students to give good grade to students, so that like this they can give you good grade. So a teacher is here to teach, to make you move, and he doesn't care if you're losing face or not. So you have to face the challenge. Knowledge is a tough way.
Of course.
And so for me, I prepare them for, not so much for the French language, but to enter the workforce.
How do you then teach in your courses this perception, through the learning of language, your perception about the country, about the culture? Like you said, most of the people, especially the younger generations, in Taiwan, think of France as some place that's very historic, culturally rich, certainly very romantic. And how do you bring those perceptions to life for them to experience it, for them to really know this is the way the French people perceive things, this is how they use their language to express their feelings and to convey their ideas.
So I give them a lot of tasks. For example, presently in Tunghai, I'm teaching part of the program when you have to rent a house, to rent an apartment. So instead of teaching them everything from first step to the last step, I just give them the very basic vocabulary, very basic grammar to achieve that, and then they have to write an advertisement. They have to get in touch with the owner of the apartment.
Of course.
They have to negotiate. And then, of course, they do that from the Taiwanese perspective.
Of course. And
then I tell them, no, French wouldn't do like that, because then you will be in trouble at this level. Or I show them that the way they present, they write the advertisement, there's no logic. For example, they will say 5 rooms house, but when you count the number of rooms, there are only 3. Or you have 5 tsusuo and you just have 2 bedrooms, for example. So, and by doing that, they begin I train them to ask questions about what's going on in France. For example, when they're looking for a house, they often say, oh, I want a castle. Do you believe that all French people live in a castle?
No.
So you have to think about it. And then we start talking about different things, how French look at their house, for example. Decoration in a house, designing the house is very important for the French people.
Yes.
French people are not so eager on Ming Pai, on famous brands, where it's very different here, because they have their own tradition of famous brands. Taiwanese don't have famous brands. They have something else, but they're not aware of it, unfortunately.
Good. Well, we know that from our conversation with Professor Serge Dreyer that he teaches courses that are multifaceted, and certainly he's also multi-talented as a person, as a professor. Because after we take another break on our program, we're going to come back and continue our conversation with Dr. Dreyer. We're going to talk about his other passion in his life, which is the passion for Tai Chi and for Tui Shou. I'll see you in a few minutes.